Hello viewers, today we will look at the special purpose finishes that are given to only few fabrics to make them suitable for specific end uses. Many textile fabrics are available in the market. Now, these fabrics are there for the consumer to make a selection based on his own end use. But these fabrics are produced and finished generally for general purpose and not keeping a specific end use in mind, and so they are utilized for many different purposes. But consumer today is looking forward to have a fabric which suits his end use in a better way and also gives the best performance for his end use. So, the finishes actually that impart the properties other than the properties or other than the characteristics that are present in the fiber, which will make them suit better for a specific end use by improving their performance, are known as special purpose finishes. Generally, these finishes are applied and they are all almost additive finishes and they do not alter the appearance of the fabric, and also sometimes it may add to the cost of the material because these are all specially finished, and so the cost of the production will go high. And then there are different types of special purpose finishes such as shrinkage control or stabilization finishes, shape retention finishes, appearance retention, comfort related finishes, biological control finishes, and safety related finishes. These are all different types of finishes. Depending upon the end use, then we can talk about as a classification of these special purpose finishes. Let us look at stabilization or shrinkage control finishes. Fabrics are finished in order to control different types of shrinkage found in the fabrics, such as relaxation shrinkage, felting shrinkage, and swelling shrinkage and all. The specific process depends upon the type of shrinkage to be controlled, the fiber composition, and the fabric structure. Usually the woven fabrics and also the knitted fabrics are made to stabilize by taking the process known as compressive stabilization process. After this particular finish, the fabrics will be free from the relaxation shrinkage, and maybe if the shrinkage is there, it may not be more than 1 to 2%. Compressive stabilization process. In this, the fabric is manipulated lengthwise and crosswise in the presence of steam and heat. In this process of stabilization, the damp fabric is led over a guide roller and drawn between a rubber blanket and a heated shoe. And the heated shoe will confirm that the fabric is against the rubber blanket. That is a very important point over there. And then when it is going over a big roller, then the fabric also get extended, and since it is a rubber blanket, it stretches to that level and then it takes the fabric also along with it, and thus the fabric stretches at that particular point. And then when it goes over and when it starts actually leaving that particular roller, what happens is that the rubber blanket retracts, and thus it will make the fabric to comply to that particular shape, and thus you find that the shrinkage takes place already and the fabric is pre-shrunk. This process is sometimes known as pre-shrinking process, and the amount of stabilization is determined by the thickness of the rubber blanket. The trademarks of the compressively stabilized woven cotton fabrics is sanforized, and that of pre-shrunk cotton and cotton blended knitted fabrics is sanfor knit, and also rayon fabrics, when they are pre-shrunk by this process, the trademark given is the sanfor set. Let us learn about London shrinkage process. This is applicable to wool fabrics. So, wool fabrics are made pre-shrunk by different methods, but one of the best and the safe methods is London shrinkage. Originally, name has come from process being used at London. In olden days, what used to happen is that some of these wool fabrics were placed in the fields exposed to the dew, and the dew used to make the fabric relaxed, and thus it used to pre-shrink. It used to happen around London, and that is why the shrinkage process is known as London shrinkage process. And today this process is still supposed to be a very safe one, because cold water process, and thus nothing happens to the fabric, because when chemicals are there, definitely they are going to spoil the material, but this material is only with the cold water, and so it is still a very safe finish on wool fabrics. And so for this one, wool fabric is made in layers alternate to the wet blankets. One wet blanket, and over that the wool fabric, and it is sandwiched between these wet blankets, and it is left for 12 hours having some weight on the top, so that it provides some pressure, and then the moisture content that is present in the wet blankets penetrates into the fiber, and then make the fiber to relieve the stresses and then get shrunk. So, after 12 hours of exposure, the fabrics are subjected to a hydraulic pressing, in which preheated metal plates are inserted into the fabric at the top and the bottom, and also in between the layers, and thus they provide a kind of a pressure around 3000 pounds onto the fabric, and so this ensures that the fabric will shrink definitely, and only very little shrinkage is left in that, and it is left like that for 10 to 12 hours. And the other processes that produce washable wool fabrics of different types include chlorinated wool, polymer coated or resin coated wools, and spot welded wools. Now we will look at shape retention finishes. Wool, silk and most of the man-made thermoplastic fibers can retain their shape even after use and also washing, and they may require little or no ironing. But fabrics like cellulosics such as cotton, linen and rayon do not have the ability to retain the shape after either use or washing, and thus wrinkles appear on the material, and so for reusing they have to be ironed, and then only they can be worn. Significant changes in clothing care has occurred today, and the consumers have no time to iron the fabrics or to take care of the fabrics after washing, and so these fabrics are having a disadvantage, because cotton, linen and rayon cannot keep up with their shape, and so in order to compete with other fibers, certain finishes are being developed in order to make them retain their shape. And among that you have a wrinkle resistant finishes. Wrinkles are formed, or wrinkles or creases, whatever it may be, they are formed when the fabric is worn or it is distorted while wearing or while washing. And so these creases, if they appear on the material, it looks very unsightly, and so they have to be removed. And so when the finishes are given, the fabrics are going to keep up their flat shape and do not wrinkle or do. Actually what happens is, this depends upon the molecular chains and their bondage between them. If the bonds are very strong, then we find that the fiber, when it bends, it comes back to its straight normal position, and once the stress is removed. But the fibers which are having very weak bondage or very weak polymer system, wherein the the kind of attractions or the cross links between the molecular chains are weak, then these weak links will break once the fiber is bent, or once the fiber is distorted, and it will break over there, and then after some time the bonds are again formed, or the cross links are again formed in the bent stage, and thus you find the wrinkles in these materials. And so these have to be strengthened in order to make them retain their shape. The polymeric system of the cellulosic fibers does not support actually this kind of strength in the polymer system, and thus you find that the hydrogen bonds will break once the it takes up a bent shape and then reformed again in a bent stage, and thus you find that the crease are formed on the materials. To provide shape retention to these fabrics, the initial process developed was the wrinkle resistance to rayon fabrics, and similar processes are developed again for cotton and also linen fabrics, and to recover from wrinkling after wear, but not after washing. Then what happens? There are again some more finishes are developed like wash and wear finishes. They have bridged the gap by providing resistance against creasing to these fabrics after washing. So, that is why they are called as wash and wear finishes. They can be by adding the smooth drying aspect to the fabrics. And then again advanced wrinkle resistant finishes like durable press are again developed in order to give shape retention, very superior shape retention to the fabrics, and thus all these wrinkle resistant finishes are dependent upon some of the resins that are present, and simply it is just an additive finish like a resin like formaldehyde is being used in this, and in ordinary wrinkle resistant finishes only 3% of formaldehyde is being used. The fabric is impregnated with this particular chemical, and then it is cured at high temperature. When it is cured at high temperature, the particular chemical which is used will form the cross links in the fibers in the between the molecular chains, and so when a distortion occurs, when there is a stress, distortion occurs in the fiber, and thus it will be bent, and then the cross links which are over there and will resist this bending, and also when the stress is removed, then they will pull the molecular systems back to the normal shape, and thus they will prevent the formation of the crease in these materials. The durability of this finish again depends upon the quality of the chemicals that are being used. Construction of the fabric, if the fabric is good, the finish is going to be good, and also how it is being given, the process itself, and also the care that is being taken during the laundering process, and so the durability of the finish will depend upon all these factors. Let us learn about wash and wear finishes. These finishes allow the fabric to drip dry and dry smoothly without any wrinkles. So, this is similar to wrinkle resistant finish, but the amount of resin used here is little higher, around 7% of the resin is being used. These fabrics need little or no ironing and after laundering, because they can be drip dried, and they can be hung on the clothes line and be used of clips and other things, hangers, and but the effectiveness of this particular finish depends upon the quality of the finish as well as the fabric construction. But the fabrics will have good soft hand and neat appearance, and the fabric should be washed very gently without using much friction, or even wringing should be avoided in hand washing, and also the spin cycle should be avoided if it is washed in the machine. In these fabrics also you have to be very careful in selection of the chemicals in the laundry, especially bleaches, and bleaches such as chlorine bleaches will make the fabric to become yellow. Actually, the labels that indicate that it is wrinkle resistant should also contain the information about the type of detergents and type of materials that can be used in the laundry, and type of drying also. And the fabrics also tear easily, just because the particular resin being used as a cross linking agent, it will be little stiffer, and thus it will allow it to tear easily, and so we have to be careful in washing and also taking care of these fabrics in use. Durable press finishes. Durable press is a descriptive term applied to garments that retain their shape even after many launderings and many tumble dryings, and so the durable press will last for a long time. And it is this particular durable press is heralded as the one of the most significant textile developments in the 20th century, and it eliminated the need to starch these materials, line dry, sprinkle and iron cotton fabrics to obtain a wrinkle free appearance. Durable press and permanent press are the terms that are being used interchangeably, but I think durable press is a better term because it talks about the longevity of the particular finish, even though both the terms indicate that there is shape retention to a superior degree. Durable finish is given to mostly to 100% cotton fabrics and blends of cotton and rayon with the polyester or rayon cotton with the polyester. Sheets and pillowcases, blouses, shirts, jeans, trousers and kind of pyjamas and all are given this kind of durable press finishes in order to maintain the particular shape even after the use and also the washing. For giving this durable press, there is a chemical formaldehyde and a glyoxal and urea. These three are synthesized in order to get the proper mixture of the resin and which can be used for producing these durable press finishes. The most widely used chemical for this particular or compound for this particular durable press is Dimethyloldihydroxyethyleneurea. This is being impregnated into the fabric and the fabric is made to cure at a very high temperature. Then the crosslinks are formed in the fiber polymer system, and thus this it makes it very strong also. The polymer system becomes very strong, and we can say that it is 20 times stronger than the original cotton fiber. And so, when this particular fabric is bent or it is subjected to any distortion, the fibers bend, but the crosslinks that are formed in the fiber will allow it to stretch to a certain extent, and then when the particular stress is removed and it allow them to they pull the particular molecular chains to normal position, and thus they avoid the formation of the crease in these materials. After the finish, the three-dimensionally cross-linked polymer resists the creasing or wrinkle resistance around 20 times more than the hydrogen bonding, which is supposed to be a Baker bonding. And when the bending force is withdrawn, then the cross links pull the molecular chains back to normal condition, and thus avoiding the formation of a crease in these materials. There are two processes of durable press are known. Pre and post cure processes relate to the point at which the impregnated resin has been cured. Pre-cure process, in the older days, what used to happen is the fabric is given the durable finish only at the textile mill, wherein the fabric is impregnated with this particular chemical resin and then cured at high temperature, and then it used to be sent to the garment industries. But what used to happen here is that, and we need some of the folds and creases in the garments, especially for a trouser we need a particular crease that is particularly made or purposefully made in the fabric. And so, to get it those particular folds and also at the seams and also at the hems, folding those fabrics became very difficult. And so, another process being developed which is called as a post cure process. In this process, the fabric in the finishing factory, it will be impregnated with the particular resin or the compound or the chemical, and then it will be dried at that particular factory, and then it will be taken to the garment industry, wherein it will be cut and sewn, and then it will be subjected to a curing at a higher temperature. And sometimes it may be pleated, or it may be some of the particular creases are there. In that particular condition, it will be cured. Then the crosslinks are formed in this condition, and thus the purposely made folds or the creases present in the garments are protected till many washes. And so, this post cure process is being used, but sometimes if you want to make alterations for the garments, it is very difficult with the second process. So, still if it is at home, home sewing and home laundering and all, the first method is preferred, wherein the fabric itself has the cross links in a flat stage. Even though durable press fabric improves the shape retention of the cellulosics, but there are some disadvantages with this particular finishing. It reduces the tenacity, the elongation, the abrasion resistance, and the flexibility of the fiber. That means, by increasing the stiffness, the flexibility is being reduced, and around 50% of tenacity of the cotton fabric is being reduced after this finish. Sometimes cotton blends are taken instead of the cotton. So, cotton and polyester, it may not lose that much of tenacity because of the presence of polyester. But if 100% of cotton fabrics are to be durable pressed, in that case the fabric is given pre-treatment with ammonia, so that the fabric will be strengthened because of the exposure with the alkali. And durable press finishes also soil scavengers, because the soil will be collected by these fabrics, and so it is a problem sometimes, and if it is a white fabric especially, it takes up the soil and become permanently grey. And so, this has to be taken care of in durable press fabrics. And the absorbency of the fabric also sometimes known to reduce, and only few people can really sense the comfort in the fabric, it is being reduced. So, these fabrics may contain free formaldehyde that is being released from the fabric, especially when the crosslinks are broken during use. We know that formaldehyde is a known allergen and also a toxic substance. And so, the free flowing of this formaldehyde is not that safe to the people, and so one has to take care of this particular fabric, especially those people who make garments with these durable press fabrics. But nowadays there are many compositions that are coming up, and research is underway to produce fabrics addressing some of these problems, and also bring the combinations by eliminating availability of the free formaldehyde on the fabric, either when it is used first or during the use. Then coming to the wool fabrics are also permanently pressed or permanently treated by chemicals. While the chemicals break the disulfide bonds, the hydrogen bonds are being broken by the use of heat and steam. And then when the fabric is straightened, when the particular bonds are again made, that means when they are allowed to reform into the disulfide and also the hydrogen bonds, if the fabric is smooth, then it is going to keep up a very smooth and flat appearance. But when some creases are made purposely in the material, and when it starts reforming again, and then it will take up the material in that particular shape, that is in the form of a fold or in the form of a crease. So, that is going to be there permanently. But durable pressed method is not that good for wool fabrics, as we know that wool is not that strong when compared to other fabrics. So, when we want to retain, actually wool has very good shape retention, but in order to have much more shape retention, sometimes this durable press finish is being given. Let us learn about Appearance retention finishes. Few finishes are helpful for retaining the appearance of the fabrics even after many washes. Among them, we have soil and stain resistant finishes, and which are of 4 types. These will be helpful in either shielding the fabric or making it resistant to take up the stains or take up the soil, or it may be helpful in release of the particular soil readily during washing process. So, one finish is that it shields individual fibers from absorbing any oily soil, and another type of finish that assists in release of oily soil absorbed into the fibers and also the fabrics. There is another type of finish that shields as well as assists in release of the particular soil, and then another type in which prevents staining by liquid anionic compounds. Coming to the soil repellent finishes. Soil repellent finishes provide the fabric surface that soil more slowly, because water or oil maybe it will not be absorbed very easily into the fabric, because the surface will become hydrophobic and it will not allow all these stains or whatever it may be to penetrate the fabric, and so they bead up on the surface, and so discoloration does not occur, because whatever stain or staining material or whatever is there, that can be easily wiped off before they start penetrating into these fabrics. Fluorocarbons are the repellents that were introduced in 1950s, and these will provide a kind of resistance to the fabrics, either oil stains or any other waterborne stains. And they provide a low energy surface, and which will not allow anything to stand on the material. So, all these things bead up on the fabric and then can be easily removed. And then there are silicone water repellents also, or soil repellents also, and which will be resistant to only waterborne and may or may not be resistant to oily stains. And so, a mixture of fluorocarbons and silicones can be of a better soil repellent finishes, and so the fabric will be impregnated with this particular thing. A compound may be consisting of fluorocarbons and silicones, or a combination of these things with other chemicals, and then when it is dried and the fabric becomes, the surface only becomes with a little hydrophobic, and thus it will not allow the water drop or oil drop to fall on the material, and if it falls, it beats up and then it can be easily removed in these fabrics. And the soil repellents work very well on nylons, polyester, wool and acrylic fabrics, and cotton and also synthetic cotton blends. And these are all found in many fabrics and garments also, and today we find that including the apparels also, including rainwear, uniforms, active sportswear, and bedspreads and carpets, and all these things are sometimes they are treated with this material, with this particular finish, so that they will not cause any stains on the fabric. Let us learn about soil release finishes. These finishes impart easy soil release from the fabric surface without the use of detergents, because of the presence of soil release agents in the materials. And special soil release chemicals are applied on durable fresh fabrics in order to provide this kind of easy soil release property to the fabric. This process can be either given simultaneously or subsequent to durable press process. Two approaches are in vogue for effective soil release. One approach is to make the surface hydrophilic with the use of polyemulsions and also hydrophilic copolymers. And another approach is to make a film or a coat on the surface of the fabric to resist this particular contact with oils or any other water or waterborne stains. And there are other performance advantages also when the particular surface is made hydrophilic, because hydrophilicity will improve the absorbency of the fabric, and thus the more comfort is being given, and also it lessens the static buildup on the fabric, and so the fabrics are more comfortable. And it also lessens the soil redeposition on the material. Then coming to the third type of finishes, that is soil repellent and release finishes. These finishes allow the fabrics to resist soiling and also readily help in releasing the soil if it is being absorbed into the fabric. It is definitely a difficult task, because we are talking about two different aspects in this. One is that we should resist, that means it should become hydrophobic, and another approach is that for release it should be hydrophilic. And so these two are to be introduced in the same fabric, and so some block copolymers are being developed with one section of hydrophobic and hydrophilic polymers, and thus this will provide the capability to the fabric in either resisting the particular taking the strain, or if the strain is forced into the material, then that particular soil associated with this can be easily relieved. So this is a very important finish that is being given today to many of these fabrics, and so that there will not be any problem for either with the stains or release of the particular soil in the materials. Stain resistant finishes. Anionic compounds, when applied on fabrics, are capable of providing resistance against the stains. So stain resistant agents are used in conjunction with the soil repellents in order to make the fabric both soil resistant and also stain resistant. And these finishes are being given to either nylon or some wool carpets, and these carpets repel the soil and repel the stains, and thus longevity of the particular carpets will be increased, and also the laundering of these carpets is very costly nowadays, and so this can be avoided because it is both stain and soil repellent. Nowadays we find that this particular finish is also being given to healthcare textiles, especially in hospitals, because there is a possibility of getting more stains, especially blood stains and all, in the hospitals, and due to that the fabrics become unsightly even if the most effective stain removing processes are being followed also. So these particular finishes are given in order to improve the capability of the fabric to resist these stains, and thus the longevity of these uniforms or bed sheets and other hospital care textiles is improved. The other special purpose finishes that impart comfort and also the protection and also biological control, we will deal with them in the next episode.